Well, what a treat to actually be with you live on a Tuesday. This is a very rare occurrence, but I feel like it was something that I absolutely had to do. Why? Well, it is Fat Tuesday, or Mardi Gras Tuesday, or Shrove Tuesday, the day when everyone's talking about feeding their bellies and eating as much as they can. So, before we get into what all the fuss is actually about, whenever and wherever you are watching this video, I am so glad that you are here. I'm your host, Meisha Johnson. So, like I said, it's that time of year when we've started to hear many people talk about Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday or Shrove Tuesday, and they're all pointing to the conversation of Lent. And then maybe you've even been asked, what are you giving up for Lent? I know for me personally, I've been asked that several times, and I have been asked that more times than I could count over the years. And I've never jumped in on board with Lent until this year. I think, to be honest with you, it's because I wasn't quite sure what it all stood for. I knew the basic premise of what Lent was, but I never really knew that much about it. And what we do or do not do in our lives has so much to do with our understanding of what it actually is. So, if you are like how I was, and many people, especially nowadays, you might find yourself a bit confused as to what Lent is and how it all works. And if you're anything like me, when I hear people talking about something that they're really passionate about, especially regarding their faith, I want to learn about it. Why? Because it has the potential to change our lives. So, for those of you wondering what Lent is, or for those of you looking for a quick refresher to get excited about jumping on board again this year, this video is definitely for you. And by the way, I can see so many of your comments popping up. It's so great to see you, even on a Tuesday. I'm not so used to seeing you on a Tuesday, especially live. But it's always so nice to look over and read all of your comments. And by the way, no matter when you are joining us and no matter when you're watching this video, you can always comment. So again, for those of you wondering what Lent is, for those of you that just need a little encouragement, a little pick-me-up, I'm so excited for you to be here with all of us today. And I want you to get excited about jumping on board starting tomorrow, Ash Wednesday, when this year's Lent will begin. So first, what is Lent? So in the most simple terms, there's so much we could talk about in Lent, but I'm really going to try to keep this less than 15 minutes. Lent is the time of spiritual preparation prior to Easter Sunday. It's kind of like what Advent is for Christmas. Jesus taught us that there is no resurrection without the cross first. And Lent is, in essence, the church's spiritual journey of carrying the cross, joining with Christ in his great suffering on our behalf, carrying that cross, that sacrifice up until the resurrection. In a way, we can look at it like we, his modern day disciples, are walking with Jesus in his passion towards the ultimate victory. But what is first? The cross is first. So when is Lent? Well, it happens to be right now, starting tomorrow on Ash Wednesday, when this video is being produced. The Lenten season is traditionally 40 days long, beginning on Ash Wednesday and ending on Easter Sunday morning. The 40-day duration of Lent represents the time Jesus spent in the wilderness preparing for his ministry. And Ash Wednesday begins Lent with us getting ashes on our foreheads, which, if you're wondering why you put ashes on your forehead, it is an outward sign of penance and a reminder of Genesis 3:19, that from dust we were created and to dust we shall return. Hence the ashes, and why we are to be so grateful. I have personally found that joining in with Lent is a private yet communal display of honor, respect, and humility for all that God has done for us. It's something that we take part in, not because we have to, but because we want to. This year, me joining Lent for the first time ever is not because I feel like I have to. I'm joining in because I want to. And because we can never outgive Christ, it is during this time that our own spiritual lives are in fact strengthened and we are sanctified through the means of fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, or acts of generosity, which are all acts derived from Matthew 5 through 7. At the very root of this Christian celebration is the Word of God, which, by the way, during any sort of fast, all the time, every day, but certainly during a fast, we're invited to hear and ponder much more deeply and much more regularly through this time. So many might be asking, well, first of all, what's the point of all of this, which I kind of just reiterated, but also the reason why they ask that is what we're really trying to get to is what can I eat? Or how much can I eat, right? This is going to directly affect us. And that's always the question. Traditionally during Lent, many will fast from eating as much as they normally would. So you're not eating as much. Modern day tradition, for example, is to eat one full-sized meal and then two smaller meals. The earlier church tradition, however, is even a little bit more sacrificial with eating only one meal a day during Lent, total, except for on Sundays. What we're doing is abstaining from food, that kind of constant habit of feeding ourselves food and drink or whatever, in exchange for deeper, more focused prayer. Every time we have an urge to drink or to eat something, and we give up that temptation for the fast, what do? We think of Jesus. And that in and of itself is a form of prayer, which is why people say that fasting is basically one long prayer. Not only are we praying, but we are also reflecting on all that's been done for us on the cross. 40 days of this. Can you imagine how powerful this is? Pope Benedict XVI said this about fasting. Denying material food nurtures an interior disposition to listen to Christ and be fed by his saving word. Through fasting and praying, we allow Jesus to come and satisfy the deepest hunger we experience in the depths of our being, the hunger and thirst for God. That's so true. I have actually experienced this firsthand in my own experience with fasting. When I deny myself food and drink, the foods and drinks or whatever it is that I would typically have and I typically want or crave, and instead pray when that urge comes, my soul comes alive with God in a way that is much more difficult to do otherwise. And this doesn't even begin to tell the story of what has actually happened in my life through fasting, which is why, even though it's challenging, I actually love to fast. And I know millions of you feel the exact same way. It's because we are witness and we have testimony of what it does in our lives personally. So during the Lenten season for Lent, there are three major components or acts of obedience that are observed: fasting, praying, and almsgiving. Number one, fasting during Lent has some unique specifications as to what to fast. For example, during Lent, the church doesn't eat meat. Modern day Westerners typically abstain from all meat except for fish and eggs on Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, and all Fridays during Lent. In addition, they fast from something else in addition that is between them and God. They fast this all throughout Lent except for on Sundays. In modern day Eastern churches, however, they fast from all animal meats and products as well as all sweets, desserts for the entire 40 days of Lent, including whatever else they wish to fast from. And again, the heart of this tradition, and this is what we just have to keep reminding ourselves of, the heart of this tradition comes from setting aside food for a special observance of us suffering or sacrificing desires of the flesh for and with Christ. It's something we want to do. we find honor and reverence in doing. Number two, the second recognized act during Lent is prayer. Like I mentioned, fasting in and of itself is basically one long prayer, but we are also to pray individually and collectively much more regularly than what we probably normally do, if we're honest. Adding in a lot of times during Lent, different prayers, for example, than what we would normally pray, or different Bible studies or other devout spiritual disciplines. The third one, recognized, is a practice called almsgiving, which simply means material generosity to the less fortunate. Not only does almsgiving encourage a way to assist those in need, but it also moves our soul to exercise self-denial, helping to free ourselves from the overwhelming attachment to money, worldly goods, and possessions. And it, in the very least, helps us to overcome the constant temptation to want more and cling to what we have, and instead respond to Jesus's command to help others in need, sharing what we have through a divine kindness and mercy that is even strengthened and extended to us through fasting. So here are the important days of Lent that we should all be familiar with. Number one, Ash Wednesday, which is coming up. This particular Wednesday marks the start of Lent and the time for penance, or a sort of repayment, a giving back of sorts. Two, Fridays. Fridays during Lent, every Friday is a required day, both in the East and the West, for absolute abstinence. Number three, Holy Thursday. This is the day that famously commemorates the institution of the Eucharist, Holy Communion, at the Last Supper, and begins the celebration of prayer for the 3 days to come, which are Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday, called the Holy Triduum. 4, Good Friday is the anniversary of the crucifixion of Christ, another required day of fasting through Lent, regardless of being in the West or the East. Holy Saturday. This is the day which marks Christ being in the grave and conquering death, ultimately, the final full day of Lenten fasting. And of course, the day the entire Lenten celebration is built upon, Easter Sunday, the day of Christ's resurrection, the celebration of Christ's victory over sin and death. It is this day, my friends, that Christ's passion and our Lenten sacrifices have concluded, and the celebration begins. Amen to that. So again, just to recap, Lent starts on Ash Wednesday and ends on Easter Sunday. There's no meat during Lent, and whatever else someone wants to give up, it could be anything. It could be other food or a drink or TV or another habit, whatever. Whatever it is, that is between you and God. Whatever else you decide to fast, aside from meat, is not observed on Sundays, is not observed throughout Sundays, throughout Lent. But on Sundays, still no meat. So no meat on Sundays, but whatever else on top of it you decided to give up, on Sundays, you can have that. And of course, pray. Make sure to pray, and super important here, do as many generous acts of charity as possible during this time. Not only will your heart swell with a joy you may not have experienced in a while, but it'll also make your Lenten experience that much more meaningful and powerful. Remember the words of Jesus in Matthew 25:40. Big theme here. Whatever you have done to the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So this is my first year ever jumping on with Lent, and I'm honored to do so. I'm excited, a little nervous. I'm always a little nervous to give up certain things that I love to eat and drink, But I really hope that you can join us this year, walking with Jesus through the desert towards victory, and just watch how your faith and your relationship with God is going to strengthen. Not to mention, it is fasting and prayer that breaks down those strongholds that might be holding you back in your life or even your prayer life. What an honor. What an honor to join in with the church body, and what an honor to sacrifice for Christ in loving memory of all he's done for us and out of pure love and obedience to him. And then, of course, how sweet to celebrate with everyone on the resurrection day, Easter Sunday. So happy Lent to all of you. If you're wondering what I'm going to be giving up for Lent, of course, I'll be giving up all meat. That's not hard for me, though, because I don't eat meat hardly ever anyway. I'll be giving up all animal products, so cream in my coffee and cheese. I'll be giving up sweets, no desserts for 40 days. And I've been really leaning towards no TV. I don't watch a lot of TV anyways, but I think that I'll give up TV as well. So 40 days of basically a vegan diet, no sweets, no desserts, and no TV. But I'll see you on social media. Happy Lent to all of you. Thank you for being with me. And of course, I will see you next time. God bless all of you. So proud of you. Oh, and by the way, good luck with your Lent if you jump on board with us this year. Make sure to let me know how it's going. Be well. God bless.